Constructors' Championship is a two-team race between McLaren and Ferrari, with only a 6-point gap. And that's why McLaren have drafted veteran John Watson in to take the injured Lauda's place. And on the starting grid, it's the brilliant Ayrton Senna in his JPS Lotus in pole position with a first ever Brands Hatch lap at over 140 miles an hour, with double world champion Nelson Piquet next, ahead of the two Williams Hondas of Nigel Mansell and Keke Rosberg. Fifth, superbly and totally unexpectedly, Frenchman Philippe Streff in the Ligier in only his fourth Grand Prix. Then Alain Prost 6th, Derek Warwick 7th, Mark Surer 8th, and down in 13th and 15th places, the Ferraris of Stefan Johansson and Michele Alboreto. Martin Brundle's 16th, John Watson, finding it hard to get back into a Grand Prix rhythm after 2 years away, is 21st, and ex-world champion Alan Jones 22nd in the new Beatrice. 26 to start then, 75 laps, 196 miles. Well, there is the amazing Ayrton Senna. This is his 6th pole position, and it's indicative of what he's like, that even after the first ever 140-mile-an-hour lap at Brands Hatch yesterday, the first thing he did when he got out of the car was to come to the BBC video van and look at his lap inch by inch. He's in pole position. I have no doubt that he has heated tyres on the JPS Lotus, as he did in practice. Well, there's the answer. He has got heated tyres, and there are the blankets to retain as much heat in them as possible. Nelson Piquet is actually in an advantageous position on the grid. Although he's second fastest, he's on the outside, and it's generally agreed that if you're on the outside, you've got a better line into the first corner, the right-hander at paddock. Now, Piquet has similarly got his tyres covered up. He's worried because the Pirelli tyres on his car take longer to warm up than the Goodyear tyres on pole position man Senna's JPS Lotus, and Piquet will probably have to watch it a bit at the start, although they were trying to preheat his tyres, as has the Lotus team. Well, Nigel Mansell still smarting a bit, literally, with torn chest muscles after wrestling the car to a standstill with a broken steering wheel in practice at Spa, a quite terrifying experience. But the fastest British driver on the grid, and just about 9/10 of a second slower than Ayrton Senna. Doesn't sound very much, but it's a great deal. Mansell, by the way, was only 9th in the practice this morning, the half-hour practice. A bit unhappy with the balance of his car, but I'm sure they put that right. Mansell's teammate, Keke Rosberg, 4th on the grid and 4th in the warm-up this morning. That's a very good sign. Williams Honda, generally acknowledged to be the most powerful car on the circuit, although they have to wind the turbo boost down a lot compared with the BMW and the Renault engine, which is in Senna's car. Keke Rosberg, 1982 world champion. He went round almost exactly a second slower than Senna in qualifying for his 4th place on the grid. But this is the real surprise. Philippe Streff, this is only his 4th Grand Prix. Before, he's driven in Formula 3000, that's the single-seater formula with 4 DFV engines, the previous Grand Prix engine. And before that, Streff was in Formula 2, and he has taken to Grand Prix turbocharged racing like a duck to water. But even so, and even allowing for that, it's an incredible achievement. He, like Piquet incidentally, is on Pirelli tyres. Now, the world champion designate, question mark, Alain Prost, 6th on the grid, and significantly 3rd fastest in practice this morning, notwithstanding the fact that he had a bit of a wastegate problem with his turbo. You've heard what he had to say. I greeted him when he landed this morning in the helicopter, and he sounded totally relaxed and entirely composed, as well he might be, because, as he said himself, if he can just get 2 more points than Michele Alboreto, he is world champion. He can't possibly lose the world championship today. He can only win it. And he's 16 points ahead of the Italian, who is way down in 15th place on the grid. The Professor. That car, that John Barnard car, is the best compromise of the lot. It's got enough power, it's beautifully balanced, it's on Goodyear tyres, which are ideal for racing conditions, of course, and the Pirellis are getting better. Well, there is Brands Hatch, as you see, the start and finish on the right-hand side of your screens. They go into the right-hander at Paddock Bend. That's about 140 miles an hour. Then uphill to Druids, the tightest and slowest corner on the course, about 85 miles an hour. Downhill to that left-hander at Graham Hill Bend, which is about 130 miles an hour. What looks like a straight between Graham Hill Bend and Surtees, but if you're in a car at racing speeds, is anything but straight. But then you've got the drop down, Pilgrim's Drop, and a rise up to Hawthorne, which is actually just about the fastest part on the course. Then there is a straight to the right-hander at Westfield, followed by the drop into Dingledale, then uphill a little for the right-hander into Stirling's Bend, and finally the dash underneath the bridge into Clearways and Clark Curve and the Brabham Straight, which is on the right-hand side of your screens now, named, of course, after 3 times world champion Sir Jack Brabham from Australia, who is here today to watch this race, and his son Gary has been competing in this meeting. And there are the 26 contestants. At the back, Christian Danner in the Zack-Speed and Pierluigi Martini. But all eyes here today, enormous pressure on him, the red and white, very distinctive Marlboro McLaren of Alain Prost. How he stands the pressure, I do not know, but he seems to stand it extremely well. Behind Prost, slightly to his right, there we're looking at the nose of the Marlboro McLaren, is Derek Warwick in 7th position on the grid, and hopefully, for his sake, they've got the balance of the car right, which he was most unhappy with this morning. So, this is it very shortly. Each lap, 2.61 miles, 75 of them, 196 miles, and the lap record will undoubtedly be smashed.
Just clearing the grid. One car halfway back on the left seems to be reluctant to start, but they've got it going. Prost, you might have noticed, had blankets on his tyres. That's an attempt to keep the temperature up so that he can get off with good grip in the early laps. But there's no doubt that Prost will be driving a conservative race today. He'll be looking for a finish in the points and hoping that Alboreto can't get up from his 15th place. So here they go on the parade lap into Paddock Bend. The road falls away quite sharply. It's a very quick, one of the most difficult corners on the entire Grand Prix circuit. The road drops away, the car goes very light off the apex and up the hill to Druids under the Dunlop Bridge there. Second gear round Druids, about 80-90 miles an hour. Then accelerating away on full throttle through Bottom Bend, along the bottom straight, and then into the fairly tight left-hander, which is a third gear, second or third, depending on how they've geared their car, and then up through the gearbox, fastest part of the circuit. Incidentally, Piquet was reaching 318 kilometers an hour at the end of this straight in qualifying, which is just a fraction under 200 miles an hour. So these cars really are very quick indeed. Short squirt after Hawthorne's, as we see them coming out of Hawthorne's and into Westfield, the corner here. Again, a difficult corner, Westfield, to get exactly right. Down the hill, and there'll probably be plenty of sparks in that dip at the bottom of the hill where they bottom on full fuel loads. Top car's tummy will touch the ground. straight down to Sterling's left-hander, second slowest corner on the circuit. And then you see now they've slowed right down. Poleman will have slowed the field down because he doesn't want to arrive on the grid too soon before the others. There he is, Ayrton Senna, leading them in, just giving a little squirt to warm the rear tyres up a bit. He probably spun the wheels a bit then. And he wants the field to arrive as soon as possible after him because, remember, there are no fans on the radiators. They depend on movement to keep the engine cool. And, of course, the clutch will tend to overheat if it's left in gear too long, and you wouldn't dare not have it in gear.
So, as the last men come into line, a very quick flash, the wonderful news that Derek Bell